It was late October when I first saw the house. I wasn't even looking for it at the time, but somehow it found me. My name is Chris Miller, and I had recently moved to a quiet town on the outskirts of Seattle to start fresh. The kind of town where everyone knows your name before you've even stepped foot in a store. At first, it seemed like a perfect place to escape the noise of city life, but something about it was off. I was browsing real estate listings one rainy evening when I stumbled across it, a secluded, two-story house perched on the edge of a dense forest. The listing claimed it was well-maintained and full of charm. The price was far too good to pass up, especially given the other options in the area. I had no idea that the moment I signed the papers and walked through the front door, everything in my life would change. The house itself was beautiful in a way that almost felt too perfect. Old hardwood floors creaked underfoot, and sunlight streamed in through tall windows that framed the surrounding trees like a painting. There were high ceilings, grand fireplaces, and rooms with intricately carved woodwork. It was the kind of house you could get lost in. But there was an undeniable weight in the air, something thick and oppressive, like the house was waiting for something. At first, I thought I was just imagining things. It was a new home in an unfamiliar place, after all. But as the days passed, I started to notice small things. Lights flickering when I was alone, shadows moving when no one was there. I chalked it up to settling dust and an old electrical system. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. The first real incident happened a week into my stay. It was late at night, and I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through my phone. The house was dead silent, which was rare. There was always a creak or groan in the walls, the house settling as old houses do. But tonight, it was eerily still. As I glanced up from my phone, I saw it, a figure standing at the far end of the hallway. I froze. The figure was tall and thin, almost skeletal, and its face. I couldn't see its face, but I felt it, the weight of it. Like it was staring directly into me, through me, and I couldn't look away. I wanted to scream, but my throat was paralyzed. My heart pounded in my chest as the figure slowly stepped back into the darkness, disappearing as if it had never been there. It couldn't have been real. Could it? I convinced myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The next morning, I checked the hallway, looking for any sign of what I had seen. Nothing. Just an empty corridor. But as I passed by, I noticed something new, a faint, chalky handprint on the wall, barely noticeable, but there. I wasn't alone in this house. And whatever was in there, it wasn't happy. The days following the figure in the hallway felt like a blur. I tried to brush it off, but the unease never left me. The air in the house felt heavier, as if something was pressing down on me, suffocating me from every corner. I kept hearing whispers, soft, barely audible murmurs, at night, coming from somewhere deep inside the walls. Sometimes, they'd be so faint that I wondered if I was just imagining them, but other times, they were distinct, clear. One night, I decided to stay up and try to confront whatever was happening. I sat in the living room, my back against the cold stone of the fireplace, trying to ignore the feeling of being watched. The house creaked and groaned, settling in the usual way, but there was something different this time, a rhythm to it. A pattern that didn't belong. It sounded like footsteps. I immediately froze. The footsteps weren't coming from upstairs or outside. They were coming from the walls, slow, deliberate, moving toward me. I stood up, my legs shaking, and started backing toward the door, my heart hammering in my chest. That's when I heard it, a low, guttural growl from the darkness of the hallway, a sound I can't even describe as human. My blood ran cold. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I grabbed my phone, opened the door, and ran outside, into the night air, not stopping until I was a good distance from the house. My breath came in ragged gasps, my skin slick with cold sweat. I felt like I was losing my mind. When I calmed down, I told myself that I couldn't leave. I couldn't let whatever this was win. The house had promised me peace and privacy, and I wasn't going to let fear drive me out. But that night, I slept in my car. The next day, I did what anyone would do when faced with something inexplicable. I researched the house. What I found made my blood run colder than I could have imagined. The house, it turned out, had a long and disturbing history. It had been built in the early 1900s by a man named Edward O'Connor, a wealthy businessman with a reputation for being cruel and vindictive. Neighbors claimed that his wife, Elizabeth, had died under strange circumstances shortly after they moved in, rumors of suicide, of foul play. Then, over the next few decades, there were a string of disappearances in the town. People spoke in hushed tones about the O'Connor family, but no one had ever been able to prove anything. The house had changed owners multiple times over the years, but no one stayed for long. The town had a dark history, and the house seemed to feed off of it, drawing in new victims every time. As I sat there reading the accounts, a chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just a house, it was a trap. A prison for whatever had been awakened within its walls. And I had walked right into it. That night, I made up my mind. I wasn't going to let whatever this was consume me. But as I turned off the lights and lay down in bed, I heard it again. The footsteps. This time, they were closer. Much closer. And the whispers, they were louder. Clearer. Calling my name. Chris. I had no intention of going back to that house. But somehow, the fear of leaving it, of letting whatever haunted me win, felt just as suffocating. I couldn't explain it. It was like I was tied to the house, like the walls themselves had claimed me. Still, I knew I couldn't stay another night in my car. So, with trembling hands and a mind filled with dread, I made my way back to the house. It felt different now, as if the house itself knew I had discovered its secrets. The air was thick with something dark, oppressive. When I opened the door, the familiar creaks and groans of the old wood felt louder, more foreboding. I tried to convince myself that I had control. But every step I took inside, the whispers grew louder, and that feeling of being watched, it wasn't in my head. The shadows moved more now, twisting, stretching in unnatural ways. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was here wanted me to know that it was still present. I decided I needed answers. So, I went back to the old history books in town, searching for anything more concrete. That's when I spoke to Mr. Thompson, the elderly librarian who had lived in the town all his life. He seemed hesitant when I mentioned the house, his eyes narrowing as though he were debating whether to speak. "There's something in that place, young man," he said, his voice low and trembling. "Something that's not right. People who've lived there don't just leave. They change. And some of them, well, they don't leave at all. It's like the house holds them. Traps them in its walls." He paused, glancing nervously over his shoulder, as if to make sure no one else was listening. Before the O'Connors, the land was cursed. Native tribes that once lived here believed it to be a place of evil. They called it the Hollow. A place where the earth was too heavy, too dark for life. And after the O'Connors moved in, strange things started to happen. It wasn't just Elizabeth who disappeared. There were others. But none of them left any trace. No one knew what really happened to them. That night, I returned to the house, with more questions than answers. The whispers had grown louder, and the shadows seemed to cling to me as I moved through the rooms. As I entered the hallway, I felt the temperature drop drastically, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The shadows were alive, swirling around the edges of the room. And then, as though the house itself had decided to reveal its true nature, the door to the attic creaked open by itself. I had been avoiding that door. Something about it had always felt wrong. But now, it beckoned me. Against my better judgment, I stepped forward and climbed the stairs. The air up there was stale, thick with dust and a musty, decaying smell. As I reached the top, the wooden floorboards groaned under my weight, as if the house itself was warning me. And then, in the far corner of the attic, I saw it. A large, ornate mirror. It was the only thing in the room that seemed out of place. The rest of the attic was filled with old, forgotten furniture and crates, but the mirror was pristine, almost glowing with an unnatural light. I approached it slowly, my heart hammering in my chest. As I looked into the reflection, I saw something that wasn't my own image, a tall figure, standing just behind me. The same figure I had seen in the hallway days ago. The same one with no face. But this time, it was closer. It reached out from the mirror, its long, bony fingers stretching toward me. I felt its cold touch on the back of my neck, sending a shock of ice through my body. In a panic, I backed away, stumbling and falling to the floor. As I scrambled to get up, the mirror cracked, its glass splintering with a deafening sound. And that's when I saw it, etched into the cracks of the mirror, the words, "You can never leave." I couldn't breathe. The house was alive. It had trapped me. And there was no way out. I ran, but as I descended the stairs, the walls seemed to close in, the doors slamming shut behind me, locking me in. Whatever was in this place was not going to let me go. I couldn't think straight. Panic had taken over my mind, clouding any rational thought. The house, no, the entity within it, was toying with me. I ran through the hallways, slamming into walls and door frames, desperately trying to find a way out. The front door. Locked. The back door. Locked. Windows. All sealed shut, as though the house had become a prison overnight. The whispers had turned into guttural growls. I could hear them following me, getting closer with every breath I took. The shadows had come alive, shifting with an energy of their own. And somewhere, deep in the walls, I could hear scratching, clawing, like something was trying to get to me from behind the plaster, reaching out through the spaces in the wood. I stopped in my tracks, my body trembling uncontrollably. There was no escape. The house had already decided my fate. I could feel it, a weight pressing against my chest, suffocating me. And then, in the silence that followed my realization, I heard it, soft and faint at first, but growing louder, clearer. Chris, it wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a voice. A woman's voice. The same voice I had heard the first night I stayed. The same voice that had called my name from the darkness of the hallway. It was now coming from the walls, from the very foundation of the house itself. I turned, my eyes scanning every corner, every shadow, looking for the source of the voice. But all I saw were empty rooms, bathed in moonlight. The house felt alive, its walls breathing, its floors groaning beneath me. I wasn't alone. I bolted down the hallway, but as I passed the stairs, I saw her. Elizabeth O'Connor. Her figure appeared in the doorway to the living room, standing completely still, her long, dark hair cascading down over a pale, hollow face. Her eyes were wide open, but there was nothing in them, no soul, no light. Just emptiness. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I froze. I didn't know if I should run or if I should stay. Something about her was different from the other presence in the house, something more desperate, more tragic. But I wasn't about to give in to whatever twisted game the house was playing. With every ounce of strength I had left, I ran toward the kitchen. But as I passed the doorway, I saw him. Edward O'Connor. He was standing there, his face twisted into a grotesque expression, like he had been waiting for me. His body was too still, too perfect. As I looked into his eyes, it was clear he wasn't alive anymore. But there was something deeply wrong about him, his smile. It wasn't a smile. It was a grimace, a chilling, soulless grin that sent my heart racing. "You can never leave," his voice was a low, mocking tone. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. The shadows around me closed in. The walls shifted again, narrowing the hallway, trapping me. I was surrounded. Trapped. The walls were alive with the echoes of the house's past, of those who had come before me, and of those who would never leave. The growls from the walls were louder now, more pronounced. The ground beneath me trembled. Whatever was in the house, it was waking up. And it was coming for me. I turned, frantic, searching for anything to get out of this nightmare. My eyes landed on the kitchen window. It wasn't locked. I had one chance. I sprinted toward it, throwing the curtains open. My fingers fumbled with the lock, and in the chaos of my desperation, I heard something I wasn't ready for. A soft laugh. Low and cold, it echoed from somewhere behind me. I didn't look back. With every ounce of fear and adrenaline I had left, I threw open the window, climbed through, and jumped. I landed hard on the ground outside, pain shooting up my legs. I didn't care. I was free. But as I scrambled to my feet, my body shaking, I heard it again. That voice. It wasn't coming from inside the house. It was coming from the forest. Chris, and then I saw it. A shadow, tall and thin, standing at the edge of the woods, just out of the moonlight. I knew what it was. I didn't need to see its face. The figure had followed me. It was the same figure I had seen in the hallway. I turned and ran, but this time, the sound of footsteps was behind me. No longer coming from the walls. No longer just in my head. It was following me. And I knew, deep down, that no matter how far I ran, I would never be free of the house. I didn't stop running. My feet pounded against the dirt road, my heart pounding louder than the sound of my breath. The trees around me swayed with the wind, their branches scratching at the night sky like skeletal hands trying to drag me back. But all I could think about was getting away, as far from the house as possible. The figure in the woods was still there, just outside the reach of the moonlight. I could feel its presence, like a weight on my chest, like something was clawing at my very soul. I didn't dare look back. I ran for what felt like hours, not caring where I was going, just trying to escape. I was gasping for air, my legs burning with every step, but the footsteps behind me were getting closer. The growl in the distance was turning into a low, guttural laugh, a sound that made my skin crawl. And then, as I reached the edge of the town, I saw it, the streetlights flickering in the distance, the safety of other houses, people, civilization. My chest heaved with relief. I was almost there. I just needed to make it. But the moment I stepped onto the main road, I stopped. It wasn't the streetlights that froze me. It was the feeling. The same cold, suffocating presence that I had felt in the house. The house was still with me. I turned slowly, dreading what I knew I would see. The figure was standing at the edge of the woods, closer now, its body impossibly tall, its limbs distorted in ways that no human could stretch. Its face, though I couldn't fully see it, was twisted, its mouth agape in an eternal scream, as if it had been waiting for me, as if it had been calling me all this time. Chris, the voice was no longer just a whisper. It was everywhere. In my ears, in my mind, in my chest, vibrating through my bones. I took a step backward. And then another. But before I could even turn to run again, I felt it. A cold hand. Grasping my shoulder, icy fingers digging into my flesh like iron chains. I screamed. But no sound came out. The air around me thickened, turning to liquid, as if the very atmosphere had become a prison. I was paralyzed. Every muscle in my body froze. And then, through the suffocating darkness, I saw her. Elizabeth O'Connor. She was standing in front of me, her pale face staring at me with those hollow eyes. But there was something different about her now, her body was shifting, flickering like a bad television signal. She wasn't just a ghost anymore. "You have to help us," she whispered, her voice cracked, desperate. "You have to finish it." I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But her voice, It dug into my brain, carving out thoughts, memories I didn't understand. Elizabeth's hand reached out, her fingers brushing against my cheek. "You're not the first. And you won't be the last. But you can end it. You can set us free." Her hand fell to her side, and I felt the pressure lifting from my chest. The air was no longer suffocating. The world around me stopped spinning. I didn't know how to fight it. But I knew, deep down, what I had to do. The O'Connor family, the house, the whispers, the shadows, they weren't just part of the house's history. They were part of me now. I had walked into their trap, just like everyone before me. The only way to escape was to make it stop. To break the cycle. With trembling hands, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the key I had found hidden in the attic, a small, rusted key that I had ignored earlier, assuming it was just another piece of the house's clutter. Elizabeth's eyes met mine, and for the first time, they were full of emotion. Hope. I turned toward the woods, toward the house, my mind racing. The figure in the trees was closer now, its eyes glowing, a mocking grin forming on its face. But I wasn't afraid anymore. The key in my hand felt warm, almost alive, as if it had been waiting for me to use it. I knew where it belonged. With each step, the shadows seemed to part, allowing me to approach the house. It was silent now, no longer alive with whispers or growls. As I reached the door, I heard the creak of the old hinges. The house was waiting for me, like a living thing. I stepped inside. And that's when I saw it, the mirror. The one in the attic, the one that had been cracked. But now, the cracks had spread. They pulsed with a dark, unnatural energy. I walked toward it, my hand trembling as I inserted the key into the crack. It fit perfectly. A low rumble filled the air, and the mirror began to glow. The shadows screamed, the growls echoed, and for a moment, I thought I had made a mistake. But then, just as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The house was silent. The air was still. And when I looked into the mirror, I didn't see the house anymore. I didn't see the figure or Elizabeth or Edward. I saw me. Alive. Free. I stepped back, the mirror shattering, its glass falling to the floor in a shower of light. And when I turned around, I knew it was over. The house was gone. I had broken the curse. But as I walked away, leaving the remains of the house behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching. Somewhere in the distance, in the darkest part of the woods, I heard it again, "Chris," and I knew, deep down, that no matter how far I ran, the hollow would never truly let me go. The house would always find a way to call me back. The months that followed were strange. I thought I was free. The house, the shadows, the whispers, they were all behind me. I moved to a new town, found a new job, even started to rebuild my life. But no matter how hard I tried, there was something in the back of my mind, an itch I couldn't scratch. The feeling that I hadn't truly escaped. That something was still waiting for me. And then, one day, it came. I had just finished a long day at work when I walked into my apartment to find an envelope on my kitchen counter. It was old, yellowed, and sealed with wax. The handwriting was unfamiliar, jagged and hurried, but somehow, familiar. Chris Miller. I felt the blood drain from my face as I ripped it open. Inside, there was nothing but a single piece of paper, folded neatly. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. The message was simple, written in thick, dark ink: "You can never escape. The hollow will always find you." At first, I thought I was imagining it. I thought it was just some sick joke, or maybe the last remnants of my mind breaking under the weight of what had happened. But deep down, I knew. The hollow had found me again. I tried to tell myself it was just a coincidence. But when I looked out my window that night, I saw it. The figure. Tall, shadowed, and standing at the edge of the street, just outside my apartment. Watching. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The figure was impossibly still, its face hidden in darkness, but I knew. I knew it was the same one that had haunted me before. The same one that had followed me from the house, the same one that had tormented me through the night, through the forest, through the hollow. It wasn't over. The next morning, I packed up everything I could and drove. I didn't care where I was going. I didn't care about the consequences. All I knew was that I had to leave. Leave the town. Leave everything behind. Because if I didn't, I knew it would follow me again. But as I drove, as the hours passed, the road stretched on endlessly in front of me. The skies grew darker. The trees on the side of the road twisted and turned into strange shapes, like they were reaching for me. And then, in the distance, I saw it. A house. The same house. The hollow. It was waiting for me. I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching as I skidded to a halt on the side of the road. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. I tried to turn the car around, but it was like the road itself was pulling me toward it. I knew then that I was never meant to escape. I was always going to be part of the hollow. A part of its endless cycle. As I stepped out of the car, I could hear it again, the whispers, the growls, the call of the house. It was as if the land itself was alive, beckoning me, pulling me back into its dark heart. I tried to run, but no matter how fast I moved, the house got closer. The door opened, inviting me in. And then, standing in the doorway, was Elizabeth. Her face was the same, but now it was colder, emptier. Her voice echoed in my mind like a warning, a plea. You came back. You always do. And now, you're part of us. Forever. The door slammed shut behind me, and the house swallowed me whole. The shadows were all around me. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. The figure was there, waiting. Always waiting. The hollow had claimed me. And as the darkness closed in, I understood the truth. There was no escape. There never was. It was dark. The kind of dark where your eyes refuse to adjust, where the shadows themselves seem to swallow you whole. I couldn't move. My legs were heavy, as if the earth itself was trying to drag me under. I stood there, trapped in the suffocating silence of the house. The air was thick, stifling, and every breath felt like it could be my last. I could hear them. The whispers. Soft at first, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. But soon, they became more distinct, more desperate. Calling my name. Chris. I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to give in. But the voices were too strong. I stumbled forward, my feet dragging me deeper into the house. The walls closed in, and I felt a cold, unnatural chill seeping into my bones. The house, no, the entity, was feeding on me, on my fear, on my soul. It was too late. The hollow had claimed me completely. But then, just as I thought I couldn't take any more, I heard it. A loud crash. The air shifted. A bright light pierced the darkness, flickering and dancing like the flames of a fire. The house trembled, as if in pain. The whispers stopped. The growls quieted. I dared to look up, my heart hammering in my chest. There, standing at the threshold of the hallway, was a figure I hadn't seen in years. Elizabeth. But she was different now. Her once hollow, empty eyes were full of life. Her pale face, once a mask of suffering, now radiated a strange, comforting warmth. She took a step toward me, and for the first time since I'd arrived in this cursed place, I felt something other than fear. Chris, she whispered, her voice soft but powerful. You have to finish it. The house has already claimed you. But you can still stop it. You can still break the cycle. The air around me vibrated with an energy I couldn't comprehend. The house was alive, but now it was like it was fighting against something, struggling to keep me trapped in its endless grasp. Elizabeth reached out to me, her hand glowing with a strange light. "It's not too late," she said. "You can choose. You can set us all free." I didn't understand. How could I escape? How could I break free from the house that had already swallowed so many before me? Her gaze softened, and I saw the truth in her eyes. The hollow wasn't just a place. It wasn't just a house. It was a curse, a prison that trapped not just the souls of the lost, but the very essence of the land itself. The house had fed off its inhabitants, and now it was feeding off me. It had always fed off the fear, the pain, the darkness. But there was a way to end it. A way to stop it all. I glanced at the floor, where I saw a symbol, a mark I hadn't noticed before. It was carved into the wood, old and weathered, but unmistakable. It looked like a seal, a key to breaking the curse. Elizabeth's voice echoed in my mind, "Destroy it. Destroy the house from the inside out." I didn't hesitate. With trembling hands, I reached for the floor beneath me, scraping at the symbol, tearing at the wood. And as I did, a scream tore through the air, a sound so intense it shook the very foundation of the house. The walls groaned, the floor cracked beneath me, and for a moment, everything went still. And then, everything collapsed. The house screamed. The floor split open, and a blinding light filled the space. I was weightless, spinning through darkness. I felt my body, my very soul, being torn apart, shredded by the raw energy of the curse being broken. The house's grip loosened, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe. I don't know how long I was suspended in that light. Time didn't exist anymore. But when it faded, when the light dimmed, I opened my eyes. I was outside. The house was gone. The woods were silent. I looked around, confused, unsure of what had just happened. But as I stood there, in the cool, crisp air, I realized something. The curse had been broken. The hollow had no power over me anymore. And in the distance, where the house had once stood, I saw Elizabeth. She was standing in the sunlight, a smile on her face, free. She was no longer trapped. She was no longer a part of the darkness. She looked at me one last time, nodding in gratitude, before turning away, vanishing into the light. I knew then that the hollow was no longer a place, no longer a curse. It was a memory. A dark chapter in my life that I would never forget. But it was over. And I was free.